Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of Insightful Conversations with your host, Krishna Radha. Today, the guest on my show is Deva Leena. Deva Leena grew up in Copenhagen, Denmark. She grew up in a non religious socialist family rooted in strong humanistic and progressive values. Her parents loved her, yet carried their own dysfunctions. Family life was not always easy, especially because Lina's father endured periods of deep depression, which left a lasting imprint on her. She felt a profound love for him, coupled with a quiet, aching awareness that she could not reach or heal his suffering. For a long time, she carried an unspoken sense of responsibility, trying in her own ways to hold whatever was never hers to carry. All in all, to sum it up, Lena feels she's privileged to be born in a time and place with a lot of freedom for women, especially, and security in so many ways, and the opportunity to meet Osho at such a young age. She was just 24 when she met Osho. So, today, let's welcome Lena and learn more about her journey. Welcome, Lena.
Welcome. Hello. Good to see you, Radha.
So, Lena, my first question to you is you went to Pune after getting to know about Osho when you were working at a brewery from a sannyasin over there, and you went to Pune in 1976. Of course, it's not a small feat just to get to a different country and from west to east, but you meet Bhagwan there. And you say that was when the magical moment happened in the enlightenment intensive. What was that moment that you described?
Well, um, I took sannyas in the West, so I hadn't seen him for my sannyas darshan. And when I had my first darshan, I was it was so big. But I've also felt that part of me I cried a lot after. It was almost like being mirrored by just looking in his eyes was so, were just drowned in that space. But you saw there was kind of this infinite consciousness, but also it mirrored my own boundaries. And so I think I, in a way, I was fairly closed. And but then I did the Enlightenment Intensive, which was inquiry, and it was all very new to me. I didn't grow up with any kind of spirituality at all, and but in the night we slept in the ashram, very close to Osho's house. And while I was sleeping, and I vividly still remember it in every sense of the word, it was like he entered into my heart. It was just like an energetic, very, very powerful experience of light and love and consciousness going into my heart and opening it and throwing away the key. And then a couple of days, or maybe next day even, I don't know, in discourse, he talked about how sometimes the master enters the heart of the disciple and throw away the key, and so it will never close again. And in a way, that's where this really deep connection was confirmed for me, because it took me a very long time to say yes to taking sannyas. I heard about Osho in this brewery. This woman said to me, "You can't sit on your ass for the rest of your life and wait for something to happen." I was doing TM. And it was like, so because of my background being socialist and non-spiritual at all, it took me a long time to say yes to Osho.
Mhm.
And once I did, that has lasted. It's never, I had all my doubt before, but this moment was the magical moment where something so deep happened that is beyond time and space, really.
Yeah, when you're talking about it, I'm having goosebumps actually, and I can feel like my heart just warming up because, you know, we are probably, this happened to in 1976, and I had a similar experience in 2018, which is like probably 40, 50 years apart or so, I guess. But yeah, I was in a retreat for the second time after I had taken sannyas, and during one of the evening white robe meeting, um, I felt like after the dancing and everything, there was a big picture of Osho, and I everybody sat down in the silence, and I just couldn't sit and move my eyes from that picture. It's like those the eyes were kind of just pulling me in, and I just stood there and I cried and cried and cried. And I don't know, there was just a very nice gentleman who kept giving me some paper towels, I think, to wipe my nose. But I remember distinctively, like, I had no clue or control over my crying, and I just went and slept. But after that, I have never doubted. Like, I had so many doubts before about this whole experience and why am I doing it? How am I doing it? After that, they just all disappeared. It just all went away. And I knew with surety what was happening to, and how I was feeling. So I can relate so much with your.
Yeah, I feel quite lucky in that way because it's almost like that connection has been, it's because it's not really of the conscious, it wasn't of my conscious
Mhm.
mind. It was like bypassing my ego and my defenses. But it means that it's at the level where it has stayed. So even with all these ups and downs that we and the shocks that we had to go
Mhm.
through all these years, there would be ripples on the surface. But this space deep in my heart is it's just there.
Yeah, I'm so grateful you're sharing this because I had no words to say what you're saying. It was just, I had no words to say that he had entered the heart, or, like love and trust. The seeds were sown because you got to hear him speak in the discourse next day, and for me, it was just some experience which I couldn't put any words to it, and I just went along with it. But when I heard you, I was like, yes, yes, I have words for that now. So I'm so grateful, and let's see where life takes me. I never, I hope my trust and love stays the way yours has unwavered throughout so many years. And
Yeah, but it gets tested,
yeah,
you know.
yeah, we'll see.
but
And
but
that's the fun part, right? You get to.
yeah, it's life. It's like, and all these barriers, they, that's who we are, and they get. That's what the master is there for, in my eyes, is to batter the ego, to batter our defenses, and I really felt the whole experience has been a lot about shedding defenses and being provoked and being in the fire and
Mhm.
um, to become more who I am, to become more real.
Yeah, so true. A lot of times you have a certain idea about yourself, that I am so and so. And then when you actually have the courage, and someone like Osho gives you that, helps you with that insight, and you realize, oh, sometimes you're completely opposite to what you think you are, and it takes a lot of, I think, strength to accept that. For me, I thought I'm not a very egoistical person. I don't have an ego. And especially coming from East, you're always asked to accept things. And I thought, oh, that's who I am. But I learned with Osho that surrendering and accepting doesn't mean just saying yes to what people are asking. If there's a feeling in, it's about you. If there's a feeling in you which says, no, I don't want to do this, this is not right, no matter what the consequences, then that is surrender. That is actually saying yes
Mm.
to yourself and saying yes to that voice. And earlier I had no concept of this. So um, that a new meaning of surrender opened up for me. is
Mm.
that is that anything you resonate with, or?
Yeah, no, definitely. Because I mean, especially in Pune 1, the name of the game was surrender. And in one level, it was also taken a bit like you do what you're told, which we did in a way. But I had one of my strong experiences around that was I worked in the kitchen quite early on when I came back to stay in '77, and that was very much a situation where it was known to be the Zen place. You got bashed and da da da. So I actually really loved it there, because it was such high energy and crazy and da da da. But
So this is with Diksha, right?
This
You
is
were.
with Diksha, yeah, because surrender was kind of you know the big surrenders, you do mad things or you do whatever you're told. But one day she told me to cook, and I said, I can't cook. And then she said, you cook. So I cooked, and I actually got to like that because it was a great job. But one day she called me into her office, and she had these little madams around her who was like being very bossy, and they were being little zen masters and stuff like that. And she called me into her office and said, Leena, you have to be more like them. You have to be more of a policeman. And I said, no, I can't do it. I don't want to do it. And so I left. And after that, she gave me such a hard time. Once she forced me, there was a festival and I had to arrange all the food. This was when I was still working in the public cafeteria. So I had to find out how much to make all the food. And there I did. And then there was some left over, obviously. And she said, you have to pay for it. I had no money. And I did. So I went quite a long way. She kept pushing me and pushing me. And then eventually she took away my lecture pass. And now the whole reason to be there was to go to be with Osho. And that sort of went to the limit. And I remember one day we were standing in the open cafeteria, and everybody was there. The visitors were there and the staff was there, and she said something. And suddenly I went like, I'm not a machine. I'm not a machine. And I was banging this fridge, and nobody ever spoke up to her. And I was like, bah, bah, bah. And then she raised her hand to hit me, and I raised my hand to hit her back. And we just stopped like that. And then she became very soft, and she said, well, you're much stronger than me because you can be soft also, blah, blah, blah. And of course, the next day I changed my job to Mariam Canteen, which was a very different story. But it's the reason why I'm telling this is because I know somewhere in myself, I stand up for myself. There's a place where, no, nobody's gonna, and it showed me a lot about, like you said, what is real surrender. It's about finding your truth.
Mhm.
And this has been a long journey around Osho, because, I have a different understanding of surrender now than I had then. But we learned from all these situations. So I'm grateful for that situation because it showed me, no, I can stand in my own truth when it really matters. And
I'm not a
whenever I've done
machine.
that, what?
I'm not a machine.
I'm
That
not
was,
a
I
machine.
love it.
Oh God, and I never forget it because I felt my power and my truth, and that was more important than so-called surrender. And the funny thing, it happened a few times in other situations, and every time I was never punished. I got something that was better. So because a lot of this was, you didn't want to get thrown out, kind of, but so
Thrown
so I'm
out of the
grateful.
commune, you mean? Like,
Yeah, or whatever, or you know,
it's basically you, a smaller energy against the collective energy, right? And you had, if, can you stand against that, right? How you.
yeah, just stand against something that's not right, that's not true to you, or I don't know, just to, it was a big breakthrough for me because she did say something very wise to me. And as we talk about this thing with ego, she said, your ego is an upside down ego, because I've learned ego is easy to think, oh, it's the people who always have the biggest and they do this, but it's not. Ego is about feeling separated. And an upside down ego, which is sort of hiding and quiet, which I was tending more towards, it's also an ego. And Osho showed that very, very, very clearly to me. And later you see in the question when he answered me. So I had to learn that this being nice and quiet and always saying yes is just as much ego and being sort of down and all that is as much ego as somebody who's, I'm the greatest, or always have to be the loudest. So in with Osho and in the communes and the friction between people and it all came to the surface. It's a mirror, and
Mhm.
that's the beauty of it.
This is so beautiful because few days back, um, I was talking to someone, Osho Sannyasin, and I had interviewed him, and he pointed out something very, very insightful to me. He said, Radha, I feel like you're looking for your ego, and your power. He said power, but power is also ego, right? And in a sense, it could manifest in a different way. And he just said that, and then for some reason, it got me into thinking a lot. And I played something someone had sent me, an Osho discourse, and that discourse was about how a nascent ego, and when it's a childish ego, like he was talking to someone, and he said, if you're from the east, your whole training is, you don't have to be egoistic, just don't put yourself before anything else. And in the west, the whole training is, you are something. But he said it's easy to drop ego for people from west because they have a full sense of developed ego. It's a ripe ego. The word Osho used was, it's a ripe ego, whereas the people in the east have an unripe ego. So first you will have to ripen your ego for it to fall.
Yeah.
And it
That was
just
definitely a moment of ripening my ego.
yes.
No, but
And
I
I was
think
like, yes.
yeah, but it's I think for me power is different from that, because the ego is the separation or the kind of defense or something like that. I don't know what ego is. I never knew really what ego was, and Osho helped me to
Uh-huh.
see it much later. But when power is true, it's just simply alignment. It comes from inside, and it's beautiful.
Mhm.
You know, and for me, my journey has been a lot of getting in touch with my true power. This is not against other people. It's just for myself. Like,
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
I'm here and I can stand in my own being, in my own truth.
Why are we so scared to be in our past, especially women?
I don't know why, but a lot of it is conditioning. You know that we're afraid of being hurt. We're afraid of losing something. We're afraid of losing love, and we're just not taught that we're okay as we are. You know, a lot of society is about making us feel bad about ourselves. So it's almost like we had to relearn to just be whole and be true. And
Does it also take a lot of strength, because the consequences could be not that great for you?
I don't know. I tell you where I learned a lot about my own strengths. Call it
Mhm.
is in the inquire in the Satori groups, because there you just really have to say, you use your own words, your own expression, and you can throw a lot of um, that stuff that's not really you out. And in many situations, I realized I'm not that weak little. Prasad, my partner, he will say, yeah, mild, what did you say? My meek and mild mannered Leena, ha ha ha, because he he knows it's just in a way it's also a game that you
Mm.
do to not get in conflict. I hate conflict, and I think that's probably also something I learned, in at home. My mom had not difficulty being angry, and my dad could explode, and so you learn these feminine roles of being quiet and being adapting and being nice and all of that.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's a journey to, and actually I have learned a lot to trust it more, because usually when I am in touch with my own strengths, call it like that, I'm much better received than when I play.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the last.
In a way, I meet people more easily when I feel my strengths, not in throwing it out, but it's more real than when I pretend that I'm so nice. Sometimes I'm nice, but not all the time.
Yeah, nice is such a elusive word, right? I always
Yeah.
think about it like nice is always bending to what the other person wants you to do.
Mm,
It's never nice means what? Like you don't create trouble basically for
yeah.
anyone,
Yeah.
right?
And that has been a game of mine, be not seen too much, be, for sure.
I think a lot of women would relate with what you're saying.
Mm,
The threat we feel is so real in so many situations that you have learned to hide is better than to confront.
mm,
So I totally like in a lot of ways. I have felt what you have gone through. Like always try be the silent one. So
mm,
because I have realized whenever I raised my opinions and how I felt, really, even in my family, there were always conflicts, and everybody would blame me and say, "Why do you need to say all these things? What's the
no.
point?" Nothing's going to change. Why do you have to
Mm,
bring all this on
mm.
up? And I
But
was
you're
like,
certainly bringing yourself out now. I mean, you're not
yes,
holding back. It's fantastic.
I
Mm,
think this is an opportunity that I have been given, probably just being with Osho, that let yourself come out. Let
yeah.
yourself, whatever you feel, however you feel. Because I do feel it was strange for me to see myself on the screen. It took me a lot of like guts and courage to just, and
Mm,
I said, I
mm,
don't care. Whatever many views I get, I don't care. I'm
yeah.
just going to do this.
You do it for yourself. Yeah, yeah.
In a way, but it all started, now I realize it's for me. Initially I thought I'm doing it as an offering to Osho and all those, things in
Mm,
my head, which it
mm,
was. But
mm,
now I can see that it is more for my benefit, and it is it
mm,
is it is a lot of learning for me
yeah.
more than.
But then also it can ripple out, and you
Hmm.
never know who it
Hmm.
reaches.
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
just took one sentence for me to get something's going on there, and for you
Yes,
too. It's just
yes,
like, and that's how it's always. Osho works in very mysterious
very
ways.
mysterious
Yeah,
ways. it's
yeah,
it's magical, like you're working on yourself, and along with it a lot of people are resonating with that too,
yeah,
like probably, but the worry is never about who's resonating and not. It's always your own self, and so
yeah.
it's wonderful. um any childhood memories that stand out for you, like that you think this is always in my memory?
No, I think I've largely forgotten about my childhood. But one thing I like, when you asked me to come here and talk, so I sort of course looked at many things, but one thing I remembered was that when I was 6 or something, I was discussing several times the existence of God. So although I'm not baptized, I'm not, my family wasn't part of the church, which is very unusual. It's a state church in Denmark, so most people are born and get baptized, and that's it. But I was always interested in. But I had this very naive thing. Or now I feel this. Like, God can't exist because then there wouldn't be so much suffering. So I was always, in a way, thinking a lot about people's sufferings. And I remember walking with my dad, who he had these on and off depressions, but he was really a seeker. And actually, both my parents took sannyas. He took sannyas because he was a seeker.
Mhm.
But I remember holding his hand and saying, and I was maybe 8, saying, Dad, what do you want most in the whole world? And I wanted, of course, everybody was happy. That's kind of very. And he said to me, I can't help other people before I help myself and become whole and happy myself.
Mhm.
And I thought that was a really courageous thing to say to a child.
Mhm.
And he was very sensitive. I mean, and yeah, so he meant, I loved him a lot, but he was difficult. But I could also see later on that he's the one who gave me this seeking quality.
Mhm.
And I was actually, he came to visit me in Pune, and he took sannyas in 79. And I was in Darshan when Osho gave him his name. And his name means the father. And then, And it was interesting because Osho talked a lot about painting and sculpting and stuff. And my dad worked as an engineer, but he also was a painter. So he had this artistic side. And Osho just saw that, so yeah, so I was always interested in this thing about, and also when I was 14, everybody in Denmark at that time got confirmed, and they got little white dresses and lots of presents, and this was, you were grown up. And because I wasn't baptized and because I didn't want to, I was the only one in a school of many hundreds and hundreds of kids. And and this is something I remember, that I knew I don't want to, so I wasn't afraid of standing alone. But my parents didn't force it, because my big brother, he wanted to be like everybody else, so he had to get baptized the day before he got confirmed, and he did it, and they didn't prevent him. So it wasn't like they told us we had to be like that. But I
What is
remember,
confirmed? What does confirmed mean?
well, this in Denmark, I don't know if others religions have it, but when you're 14, officially you were grown up, and then you
Like
have
coming
this,
out?
you're coming out, so you're in church, and
Okay.
it's a big deal. I don't know, it's not the same, but in those days, that's what you did when you were 14. It was kind of, then you were an adult. It's a kind of Christian thing. I don't know so much about Christianity. I never really been so keen on it. But it was more for me, again, this, I know when it comes to certain things, my truth is stronger than to confirm.
Yeah.
So conform, it's called, yeah. So
The quiet strength, right? That is.
well, there was something, and in a way, I guess in many ways, I probably also felt different. But that was, and my parents were also different, but I didn't know that at that time.
Did you have few friends or a lot of friends? What kind of?
No, I didn't have. When I was very, very introverted until teenage years. Then I started coming out and having friends and having fun and stuff like that. But before that, I had a few friends, but I was just I was reading books and I was really quiet. And I think actually one of my biggest imprints, and I can see that now, has really formed my whole life, is my birth trauma. Because I was born 3 weeks too early, and then they stopped it with a drug. So, and then I got born anyway, and then I had a vaccination. So the first 10 weeks of my life, I was like a vegetable. I was kind of just surviving. And so what I know now, also with all the cranial work and healing work, is that has just been a part of why I was so introverted and why I was so close. It's like my life energy didn't really kick up from the beginning. So I had that experience of, it was almost like I had to contract to my very core just to survive. Those first 10 weeks. My mom said I was allergic to water, so she couldn't really, And it was my mom's love that helped me survive, because she stayed with me for 10 weeks, 10 months. I couldn't go outside. I was really allergic to everything. And then when I got better, this was sort of on top, she was so exhausted, she went for a holiday. And I never forgave her for leaving me then. I did in her old age, but that was a kind of, again, once you get
Inside, yeah.
healthy, then mom, when she came back from, poor woman, a 1 week holiday, and I was like, no. So that's, but I know I still work with that story from my birth, because it's impacted my physical well-being a lot and my life force. So
Do you think, Leena, you still have this tendency of, um, it seemed like you didn't want to be here and you were kind of pushed to be here?
well, yeah, it's always been a thing for me about life in the body. I certainly resisted it. And at the same time, I must have had a lot of will to survive and to get here. Otherwise, we don't get here. But it's been ambivalent. So there's always been a part of me who doesn't
Wants it, but doesn't want it.
wants to be out. And the way I look at it now, and this is a lot in the time in the healing world, is about embodiment. And I feel like this split between my soul or spirit or whatever, and just living a life in the body that was disturbed. And I had to, because I didn't, I learned to walk by willpower. I still remember learning to walk when I was, I don't know how old you are. I was standing at one end of the room and saying, now I'm going to walk, and go, because I didn't learn through play.
Mm-hmm.
So still now I feel like, and very much these last years, it's like, it's time, and now I want to really live through my body, in my body, and be human, take the challenge while I can, because now it's the other end, and it's soon it's out of here. So while I have and at the same time, I'm very physical. I very much experience life through my body. It's
Mm-hmm.
been my journey. It's been my challenge. And that's why I got so much into different healing modalities and stuff like that. Because I
I
had
want to
to,
tell people who are watching this, Leena is a healer. She has done a lot of work in craniosacral therapies and color puncture, and she can also, she doesn't like to talk about it, but I'm going to say it anyways. Um, she does for her friends. It's not like she does it as a commercial or as a but she does it for her friends, distant healing. Even when people are in the process of leaving their body, she is present and she's able to offer some help and support to them. Do you want to talk about it? Because I do see you in that role from whatever your life, how it has turned out. First and foremost, you're a healer, I think.
well, I have a little bit problem with that word, because it sounds like doing, for start, I was never, I know so many gifted, my teachers were fantastic, and gifted healers who, it's their passion, it's their life. For me, it was never like that. I never wanted to give sessions and teaching, and I
Mhm.
give some sessions, but it's not my thing. I need to do different things, and that's why I've done so many trainings. I do one training, I love it, I get into it, but then I move on to the next. And so it's always been actually about healing this thing about my own
Mhm.
disembodiment in a
Mhm.
way. So I just want to say like that. But along the way, I have obviously picked up quite a lot of different modalities. And so, and I think I told you about this, so sometimes it happens that I can give good sessions, or I can do a healing, something happens to people. But for me, it's not about I am a healer. It's about, sometimes I can hold a safe space for people where they can do their own healing.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? It's very different.
Mhm.
I am very, very adamant about not interfering in anybody's
Mhm.
process. But just sometimes to be present is what's
Mhm.
important, and to hold a safe space. And I think I wrote to you, and that is in a kind of what's happening in the last years is I've been asked to do it for people in their dying process,
Mhm.
and being with people as they were dying. And it's not something I'm been seeking out or looking for. It just comes with the territory. When you get my age, people die.
Yeah.
So I've been privileged to be present with two people dying. One was Prasad's father, and the other was my own mother. And I'm so incredibly grateful that I could, particularly maybe my mother, because 6 months before she died, she got very ill. She was 97 when she died, so it was not a tragedy. But she was healthy. She was not medicated or anything. But 6 months before, she got an infection, and she got a bit delirious. And then she had this vision of this black duck that was going somewhere. And I kind of knew she's seeing her own death.
Mm.
And Osho often talked about, 6 months before you die. And so I made a note, and I thought, I'm going to be there in 6 months' time. So I was there. And because of, I don't know, I could follow her. And sometimes also I've friends, because many friends have left their body then, and sometimes I've been following them and being with them in distant sessions, and getting, I don't know, holding this space, and sometimes I get sort of information or visions or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
I'm just putting, because you
You put a
mentioned
prasad.
Prasad. Yes, I was like,
Oh, yeah,
people
we
should
didn't
know
talk
who is
about prasad.
Prasad. Prasad is Leena's partner.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
he's yeah. So it's been a great gift to be present with, also with Prasad's dad when he died, because and most people I've had that connection with, there's been such a sense of this longing for peace.
Mm.
You know, that it's not about healing, getting them better. It's about
Yeah.
allowing the journey and bringing wholeness and stuff. But
Yes.
what I discovered with Prasad Sen, I had no idea it was like this. I was with him the last few hours, holding his hands, and he got more and more quiet. He really wanted to go. He had cancer and he was on morphine, and he just wanted to go. And then, so I'm holding his hand, and he gets more and more still, and I'm like, and part of me went again this, don't interfere, because I learned, oh, you tell them this, fine to go, don't hold back, just go. And we're like, it's none of my business. He is teaching me now. I'm not to say what he should do. And then as I'm holding his hand, suddenly this explosion came out of his arm through his hand. It was like, and I was like, oh my God, now I have to leave him alone. So I went and stayed in the other side of the room, and then I walked out, and Prasad came in and held his hand, and a few minutes later he died. But what I've learned, and this is also something in Cranial, that there's something called designation. It's not easy to get out of the body. It requires a force and an energy, and I really felt that with him. It was that life force going, and then he could go. And with my mom, she was amazing. The last day she was there, and I was there, and my brothers were there, and she said, Leena, as it is the last evening, let it be a celebration. Okay, and you can start with the flowers. And she had been to a celebration in Pune where Osho was there. And so she knew about this celebration. So we got lots of flowers, and we were all there with her. And she'd also said to me the day before, she said, Leena, I've taken many steps towards dying, she said, but there's 4 steps left. And that was easy, she said. I said, oh. And she said, but I have 4 steps left. She said, I said, will that be easy too? And she said, yes, because you and I and the man, she had some man that was helping her, don't know who it was, we know how to do it. So she was in a way very, I mean, it
Aware.
was so, yeah. And so we made it a celebration. We had the fun. But when it came to the very end, it was a struggle. And that really was, I mean, I talked to her while she was going, because we talked about it before, but I could see actually disengaging, ungluing from the physical is hard work, you know. And she was kind of pulling faces, and it was very intense, although she had said, let it be a celebration. So for quite a while, it was a fight. And well, then when she left, it was like, then she was so beautiful. She looked so peaceful. And then we had pizza and celebrated around her, and we stayed with her silently we just all were in silence for a while, and then we celebrated. So, but for a long time, I went like, what happened? You know, it wasn't like this peaceful death where you just go, like it was with Prasad's dad in a way. And so I had this, and I was also crying a lot after she died, and it was very complete with her. I'd been with her a lot. It was very loving, but I didn't understand it. And then one day I had this kind of I had a vision where it was like I was her. I saw the whole scene, how she'd seen it, how she'd experienced it. It was really intense. And I could see myself and my brothers. And she said to me, "My beloved daughter, you were here." And then she said, "Now stand up and behold." And it was such a blessing. And I could understand that it was just that physically it was very hard to, because in a way she wasn't sick, she was just
Mm.
old and it was time to go.
Mm.
So so it was really more. And then once I could hear my own voice talking to her while this was happening.
Mm.
And then she left and she was kind of in the light. And so that really eased my mind, what had happened, that we couldn't have done anything else. We were there. And the whole home, she was in the home by then, they all came and said, "Oh," she said, "that was so beautiful how you were with your mom, because we see so many people, they can't die because they're so afraid. So many people have to be really weak and ill and to die." So
It's interesting you say this because I had my neighbor, she was 97, and she had Alzheimer's. She could not remember anything. Her kids used to come and take care of her on and off. She had a nurse. But every time she went to the hospital, her daughters would talk to me and they were like, yeah, probably she's going to pass away. And then she used to come back. And it was getting worse and worse for her in terms of health. But one of her daughters and I, we were friends, and she said, it's not easy for her to let go. She's not been a person who can easily let go. And I don't know anymore what to do. So we just keep giving her medicines till, and sometimes people are put in on the intensive, like the artificial oxygen and stuff like that in a vegetative state. And I see that happening so many places around me where people are 90s, in their 90s, but the fear of death, the fear of unknown. So what you say is, though there was a struggle or people become unconscious while dying, but this part that you're ready to go, this okayness, um, is probably a big lesson and learning, and it's an achievement for a life led. It's kind of, Osho used to say, your death is a climax of the life you've led.
it's part of life. And I feel very much that's what meditation is about. I mean,
Mhm.
that is slowly learning to let go while we are in our bodies, while we're alive,
Yeah.
and meet it with I mean, it's a mystery. There's no way of knowing what's going to happen.
And he used to also say, right, that the only people who die consciously and with awareness are enlightened. There's no other way. Otherwise, there is going to be that struggle, or you're going to be, if the nature is so kind on you that it makes you unconscious, because it's like a surgery. It's like the ultimate surgery.
Yeah, it is. That's the feeling I had. This surgery is like peeling the skin. It's like it's because we're made to be with this body for some time
Mm.
until we're not.
Yeah. Probably, unless you are, if you have entered samadhi, death, and then
Mm,
that's what he used to say. I don't know. I have no clue.
mm,
And I don't have as many experiences as you. I just remember once when I was a child, I was, I think, 14, and in India, there used to be an old couple who used to live below our apartment. We used to live in these high rise apartment complexes, and so I remember, there was this uncle, and he grandfather, kind of elderly person, and he came after a evening discourse listening to some religious, and he just lied down on his bed, and his wife came running to us, and she said, something's happening to my husband, and there's nobody in the house. It was just me. My parents were out somewhere, and I said, I don't know what to do. So she said, just stay with him while I call the doctors, and I'll do everything. Just stay with him. So I don't know why, but I started rubbing his feet. I don't know. I had no clue why I was doing it. And then suddenly I could feel his whole body go cold, like really cold. And he's just peaceful. I never observed any struggle, anything for him, but maybe he did, and I was just a child and so scared that I did not. But I that was the only time I was present in death. And then everybody
Wow.
kept asking me, how did you feel? And I was like, I didn't feel anything. He just went.
But that's
So
beautiful. It's beautiful you were there rubbing his feet. I'm sure that eased it. And I don't think it's for everybody's has to be like the struggle. But I think that thing with Prasad's dad, he so wanted to die and he was ready. But it was more that kind of energy that released. That
Mhm,
wasn't a struggle, but it was the energy that it took to disengage or something
mhm,
like that. I'll never forget it. And in cranial, we call it the death ignition. So there's a
mhm.
kind of when you get what do you call it, conceived, and when you get, and there's a ignition, and there's a ignition, and there's also a death ignition. So I feel very privileged I got to experience that in such
Yeah,
a direct way.
yeah. And you could feel so many things around it. It's beautiful. I think death is one of the most magical things and the most
It's
mysterious.
totally, yeah.
Yes,
And I
it's.
tell you, when you get older, it gets more and more because that's the next exploration, it's the next
Mhm,
step, and you know it's coming. And with so many dear friends going, and some go very quickly, and some go over a
mhm,
long time, and I can see with the people I followed through giving them distance sessions, you know, one of my friend had cancer, and I could, the first time I've met him in that, you know, he was in Denmark, was like, it was just, I just saw this light and peace. He just wanted peace. And then he had this operation to get better,
mhm,
and it was successful, but then something else happened and he died soon after. And I just felt that's really what his soul wanted. You
mhm.
know, it's just when it's time,
To
it's
let go.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful. We spoke about death, and I don't know, people find it a morbid topic, but I love it. I don't find
Oh,
anything
good.
morbid
It's
in
part.
death.
No, no. It's part of life, and particularly, you know,
Yes,
there's
I
supposed to
mean,
be.
it's like life and death together, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And maybe I'm young, so that's why I don't visualize these things. But
Mm,
and it
mm,
when I get older, I could start like, oh my God, I'm gonna die too, kind of.
mm.
But I don't know. I want to have this joyful thing towards death. Yay, let's go.
Well, that's what Osho was all about, celebrating death. I mean,
Yeah,
that's like I said, my mom had been to a death celebration in Pune. She got that. That's, you know, if we can celebrate
yeah. Why
everything,
not,
then we can
right?
celebrate life also.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
So,
moving on to your ranch. When you were at the ranch and you shared this post on FB, you were kind to send me these articles. So you saw one day Osho driving by. This was towards the end of the ranch,
mhm,
and
mhm.
he looked very stern. And there was, I think, a lot of press, and it was closer to when.
Well, this was at quite very close to the end of the rants when he started coming out again and talking in Buddha Hall. And I was in the pipe crew. I love the pipe crew. We had so much fun, and we were
What is the
so
pipe crew?
the pipe crew. We had to dig trenches and put, you know, pipes for water,
Okay.
and so it was all underground. We loved being down in the trenches and putting. So, so we were so fanatical, and although this is after Sheila had left, and we were so fanatical that we were still doing irrigation outside Osho's house, although it was pretty clear it was towards the end. But anyway, so therefore we didn't go to the talk, to the whatever it's called. He had talk. I think there was, I don't know if there was press also, but anyway, so we were standing outside his house just at the roadside, and he drove past and going to talk in Buddha Hall. And I'll never forget it because he didn't acknowledge us. He didn't wave nothing. He just sat there completely still. And it just hit me like lightning. He said, there's nobody there. Whatever happens, he's not doing it for his own winning or his own personality or anything like that. It's just existence coming through him. It was just such a knowing, because I knew that he was going to go into the hall and dance and talk and hit us and all kinds of put on the big show. But in that moment, he was just not there as a person. It was just I just knew, and it was really important for me because we went through a lot with the Rand's ending and all the stories, that that trust that I
Mhm.
already had, but it got deepened in that I just knew he's not doing its existence coming through him. He's just a vehicle, and he's not doing anything for his own personal gain. That I just trusted that. So it was a very important thing for me.
What a gift, na, Leena. Like when you can see that happening in the person you love, who's performing all these, big shows for you to get attached to him, and you still see this. It kind of brings you to your own trust that this is existence, right? You trust
Mm.
something bigger than you. It brings you back to your own. He
Yeah,
becomes a door in a way, right? To
that's, and that was even the first time I went to Darshan in Pune, was just looking into those eyes, and this kind of
yeah.
its existence, it's infinite, and it's kind of, but he also mirrors the same infinite in you,
You
and
have
that's
no
a lot.
idea what a gift this is, because I'll tell you a small story. I was talking to someone in Australia, Sydney. She's a sannyas and she loves Osho very much, but she lives around uh, probably people who are also Osho sannyasins, but kind of moved away from that um, that vibe that they had around them, and the questioning everything. And there are FB posts about, oh, how he was not what he said and he manipulated and this and that. And then again, after staying with him for 20, 30, 40 years, people again questioning
Mm.
this. And it just makes me think, what a loss, what a loss that you couldn't see, what, and you did, you saw what was happening. And that
Well, I saw what's happening for me. I can't say
yes,
that this is the truth because I
yes,
think we all have our very individual story and
yes,
your own
yes,
individual truth. So I can only say what
yes,
happened for me.
yes.
But that's the only thing I can trust.
Hmm. That's what I'm saying.
So
It's such a gift,
yeah,
right, to
it
be able
and I
to.
feel it is a gift. I feel very,
Yeah.
very lucky that I think
Hmm.
it must be very, very hard to have been through all of that and then start
Hmm.
doubting, and many people will get negative and stuff like that.
And there
But
were things that happened, or every
yeah, there's
movement has some darkness at its root. So it's not. I'm not saying
absolutely.
it doesn't.
I'm not saying that Osho
Yeah.
didn't do all sorts of things and
Yeah,
was all
yeah.
sorts of,
But
and
just to
that's what I
have
meant with
this
this
thing beyond
connection.
that,
Well,
and
that's why, in a way, I feel that in a way I was lucky to have a connection that wasn't so dependent on how he was with me. Many people who are very special, it was very hard to not be special anymore. Or
yeah.
if you had a certain idea or an attachment as a person, he didn't make it easy to stay around. Let's make that clear. It was
For you.
no, for everybody.
Okay.
If you had to go through all, then he said that. He said, I could keep
I'll just
coming
put
with.
a small thing before that, because you had said this to me in your emails and stuff, so people have a context. You said that Osho always ignored me. He never like personally came and danced with me or made me
Mm,
feel special in any way. So this conversation that we are having can you can tie it to that how that was his compassion actually, when he's
yeah,
not.
no, that's I mean, that, and it was hard because we all there were so many beautiful talented people around. It's very easy to get into comparison, and there was many people who were very close to him and special and stuff. And I've come to see I couldn't have taken it. I couldn't take it. He said, I'm available to everybody, and it's
Mhm.
up to you what you can take. And but he he was really like ignoring me. Not in dashing and stuff like that,
No,
but if there
yeah.
was drive-by or something, he didn't particularly ignore me. He just didn't give
Yes.
me special attention. I could many times I was close by Jesus Grove when he was dancing, and I would like dance, let me dance. No, no, no. So that was kind of that upside down ego, like wanting
Yeah,
to
like
be
pick
seen,
me
and
up, but I'm
yeah,
gonna be
and
hiding.
not and so yeah, so I think I also told you about then in Pune too. He actually answered my question,
Do
and
you want to
that
tell the question and then
well, it's quite a long question, but it was like I said there was something about I've given it was I was having this joy. I came to Pune too very from just before Osho came. I was happened to be I was given a hint to go to Bombay, so I was in the ashram just a few days before he arrived. So I was given a room in the ashram, and I had to do this job of organizing and getting the place ready for him. So I was organizing a crew of Indian workers, putting up bamboo fences, and I was like, it's not my thing. I love working with people, but to be in charge of a crew, it wasn't my thing. So I was quite miserable. And at one point, and I knew if I didn't do that work, I would lose my ashram space because
Mm.
and I thought, and one day I wrote this question to Osho, and I was just like, no, I can't go on. This is not true for me. So it's something like, I'm so tired of trying to be what I think I should be in order to get what I want to get. And I said, is it possible? And I was crying, and I said, is it possible these tears are flowing towards you, towards life, towards the ocean? And then he's so tricky because at that time we'd go every day, twice a day and that had just stopped when I asked my question. So we only went once a day. So he waited, and it was a long time since I put in the question to say he's not going to answer it. And I stayed home in bed with my boyfriend and drank coffee. And he answered it that first morning in the months where I hadn't been to this course. And it was just the whole way like this. And he does talk about my ego in it. But so, I,
Do
I
you want
mean,
to say
it's,
what he said? I love that question and
well,
answer. I can.
for me, I tell you, it was like the key to everything because in one way, he's very loving and said, you're blessed that you'd given up the hardship. Da, da, da. And then on the other end, he points out, it's your ego. And he talks about, and brings me back to sort of the birth trauma, like I talked about. He said, your ego is a frozen block and it needs melting. Love melts it, trust melts it, fear makes it more frozen. So, in one way, he points out, it's your, and then at the same time, he so showers, he said, I can't, it's a long question, but he said, easy is right and right is easy. And he said, there's no question you will also reach the ocean. Just enjoy the birds and the trees and the people and don't be in a hurry. Just have your coffee first. He tells a joke about having coffee, and there I am in bed drinking coffee. And he said, have your coffee first. Don't be in a hurry. He said, there's no doubt you will also reach the ocean. So in a way that has really stayed with me because it's be easy, just enjoy simple. And this is how I live my life now. It's a very simple life, enjoying simple things. But it's amazing how he, in a way, said,
He saw you without
he's
seeing.
he saw me, he saw the ego, and he saw the potential of just,
I
he
love
said,
that line. I think it's by Changsu. Easy is right and right is
yeah.
easy.
He said, right, easy is right and right is easy. And he said, when both easy and right has disappeared, you have come home. So, so that's my final guidance from the master. To just, he said, all that the people who want to find themselves have to do is stay melted. So melting was the key word. It wasn't like trying hard and meditating more, and it's just melt and take it easy kind of thing. So
Such a beautiful way, I think, to conclude our show. Melt your ego. We all have frozen egos. If we can just be and flow with the river of life that we have here. And it's a hard thing to do. It's not an easy thing, but this gives me so much hope, inspiration when I speak to you and so many other sannyasins, that what Bhagwan has taught, it comes back in pieces, bits and pieces through you, when you share it as personal experiences, and when a person says it, it hits differently, versus when you just read it. So thank you so much, Leena. We're going to end this show with this wonderful line that you threw, that easy is right, right is easy, and when you forget both right and easy, that is when you've come home. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Radha.
Thanks.
Quando a noite cai, sinto o peso do vazio chegando. Tantas cartas que nunca enviei, tantas palavras que morreram aqui. O relógio tic-taca, mas o tempo parou naquela esquina onde nos perdemos.